Hey guys, welcome back to Fishing 101 The Basics. Last week we covered rods and reels. This week we're going to put something on the end of the fishing line so we can catch a fish. We're going to cover hooks, weights, bobbers, just enough to give you something to get you started. Let's move over to the workbench where we can get a better look at everything and get going. Let's start out talking fishing hooks. We're going to try to keep this real simple. There are probably 100 styles of hooks out there for various things. But we're going to start out real simple. These are Eagle Claw. I picked these up at Walmart. They're less than $1.50 a package. There's 10 hooks in a package. If you'll see, this hook is a size number 1. This hook is a size number 6. Probably for bluegill or smaller fish, this might work out. And yes, I know, the smaller the hook, the bigger the number. I don't understand that system either. But these are just basically for live bait. Here's worms or chunk bait, and here it says all-purpose live bait. This will get you by. If you want to go out and fish with night crawlers or worms or maybe minnows, something like that, these 2 hooks will get you by perfectly fine. That's all you need to get you started. I will say, the smaller the hook, they get them down in their mouth, the tougher they are to get out. I'm going to suggest having a set of needle nose pliers or forceps or something like this. You can get a hold of that hook, help get it out. It'll make it a whole lot easier. Now those 2 hooks will get you by there. Let's move on to treble hooks. Slide this out of the way. Now we're talking with your treble hooks. This happens to be a number 6 treble hook. This is a number 4. They make them smaller, they make them bigger. These happen to be the size I'm using when I paint lures and the hooks I put on, such as, here's a pair of number 4 hooks on this lure that I painted. Here's a pair of number 6 hooks on this lure. So basically that's why I have those 2 sizes on hand. Now let's say you're going out for catfish or carp or something. You want to use dough ball baits or chicken liver or turkey livers or shrimp or whatever you're using. I'm seeing hot dogs used for catfish. These type of hooks, there are other hooks that a lot of people use for catfishing or for carp, but there's a start. Again, we got to start someplace. That's where we're going to start with the treble hooks. Those 2 hooks, just a basic everyday hook, whatever size it is, a basic everyday treble hook, that will get you started. That's all you need for hooks. Let's move on to weights. All right, we're going to look at 3 or 4 types of weights in here. Some of you may use. The first one we have is a bell weight. Basically looks like a bell. It has your spot where you can tie your line at the top. Now, sometimes people tie directly on, but let me show you. Here's another way. You double over your fishing line, run it through the eye on the bell, and then just loop the line. Get a little bit bigger piece here. There we go. Loop the line down over the bell, bring it back up, and you can hook it on that way also, to where you can take it back off easier. The other lines you have here, the other types you have, this is one that you probably won't get into or use. All right, this is what they call a bullet weight. Let me get my line straightened out here again. This is what they call a bullet weight. And this one is designed to actually slide up and down the fishing line. There are places you'll find a use for this later, so I wanted to bring it in and show it to you now. But it's probably not something you're going to use on day one, especially if we're just going to go out and put a worm on or a minnow out and go fish. You probably don't need this one. The one you see most often is just the weight that pinches on the line. Now you'll have one. This has a set of ears on it that you can grab a hold of and use that to spread open the line. Here's a style that does not have any ears on this one. So there's 2 different styles. The one you'll see most often is the kind with the ears. And it's just basically designed, lay the line down inside of the deal, take a pair of pliers you want, pinch it down, and that holds the line wherever you want it. Later on, you can pinch those back open again and pull your line back out. There are other weights, a lot of other weights, especially if we're getting into, say, river fishing where we're going out and you got a lot of heavy current, you need bigger weights, and there's all kinds of other things like that. This is going to be basic, again, just enough to get you out going to fish for your first fish. All right, let's move on to some bobbers. That's our next thing. You know, there's all kinds of bobbers out there. As a matter of fact, when I stopped at the store to look yesterday, I picked up this one new to show you. I was amazed at how many different styles of bobbers there were. I hadn't even paid attention lately. The basic round everyday bobber, you can buy a bag like this for a few dollars. It's got all kinds of sizes in it, from big to little, depending the size you need, which is usually how much weight you're putting on. This one's real simple, spring loaded. That goes out, your fishing line hooks under, holds it in. Now, I got a short piece, so it's going to be hard to show you this, but usually what you're going to want to do is take this and wrap that line around there 2 or 3 or 4 times, then squeeze it down. That way it holds it, and otherwise it will slide up and down. Okay, that's one type. Here's an old one. Pulled that one out of my dad's tackle box, to be honest with you. This one and this one have a lot in common, except for this can be used one way only. This one happens to be used 2 ways, or they say 3. And I picked this up at Walmart just the other day for less than $2. Now, one way you can do that is to pull up the spring, put your line down in the groove, and put the spring back down. Oops, wait a minute, better put it in the other one, hadn't I? Put it in there, put the spring back down. The spring holds the line in place. Again, that might take a wrap around the lure, would help. The other way, and one way this is probably a very beneficial way to run a bobber if you can, because it's a little bit easier for you in tight spaces. If you can see, there's a hole here. That hole goes all the way down through the bobber, so it'll come out both ends. So this is what we call a slip bobber. It will slip up and down the line. Now the key to that is you only want it to slip up so far. So how do you handle that? And that's going to be with a bobber stop. All right, let me get you some here. Here's some bobber stops. These are just little round rubber pieces, and hopefully we'll be able to get this up close enough you can see. There's a little wire ring here. All right, and the way you put a bobber stop on, and this will be the very first thing you put on. If you're using a bobber stop, the bobber stop goes on before anything else. And you take the line, run it through that ring. You can see I've got the line through the ring. Now I take the bobber stop and I pull it. And I pull all the way through, and I keep pulling. Get it all the way down until I got one. There we go. I popped it off. And now there's the bobber stop. It's on the line. Now, in my case, here's what I do. Look at that bend. There's a bend right there. That's because that's where I was really pulling on that wire. For me, I'm left-handed. Got to change here a second. I cut that off. I want to get rid of that. I don't like that little on there because I bend that. Now, I have a bobber stop on. This I can slide all the way up the line wherever I want it. So I slide it up the line. I now take my line and my bobber, and I now put my bobber on. Run a little lower line through, there we go. There. Now I have my bobber on, and as you can see, it slides up until it hits the bobber stop. All right, so let's slide that bobber stop up a little more. There we go. I now have a bobber on. The next thing I do, and let's see if I got a hook out here in the open. Put all the hooks away after we got done talking about them. I'm just going to take this hook real quick. All right, so let's say now I'm going to tie on my hook, and I'll just hold it in place for this. There's my hook, and now I've got my pinch on weight. I may put my pinch on weight maybe 4, 5, 6 inches up, and I'll have my fishing rig where I've got my weight on, my hook on, and the bobber stop moves. The reason this is advantage, let's say I'm in 8, 10, 12 feet of water and I want my hook down 6 feet deep. I can actually pull this bobber stop all the way up to 6 foot, and then when I put it in and the weight takes the hook down, the bobber is going to slide all the way up until it's 6 foot deep. But the advantage is the bobber stop is going to come all the way down here to where my weight is, the bobber will. So I don't have 6 feet of line hanging out when I'm trying to cast. I can only have a foot of line out when I'm trying to cast, and yet when it gets out there, the bobber's going to go all the way down to 6 foot deep, and I can fish in deeper water that way. All right, I showed you the various hooks to use. This one's a little old and almost a little rusty, but it's bigger, and that's what I needed to show you. I want to show you the way I tie on a fishing hook, and I use what they call the improved cinch knot. So got some bigger thread here. We'll see if we can throw this through. We're going to go through the line. So I've just gone through the hook. Now I'm going to wrap it. And basically I'm going to go wrap the line. And normally I'm going to do this probably 5 or 6 times that I'm going to wrap. But for today we'll call that our 5 or 6 times. How's that? All right. I've now wrapped my line around at least 5 or 6 times. I'm now going to take the end of my line, and there's that loop. I'm going to come right back through that loop. And that leaves me now a new loop. So I'm now going to take this line and bring it back through that loop. And then from there, we're going to cinch everything down. And this will slide right down on. Now you might, when you're going to cinch that up and slide it down, wet that a little. Give that spit on that just a little bit. All right? And that'll help it a little bit if you do that. You can see your tag line is going to be this way. You're going to pull that down, and that is an improved cinch knot, and that'll work for about any hook. Now there's lots of other knots you can use. That's one of the simplest, one of the easiest, and that's the one I use to tie most of my stuff on with.
All right, guys, ready to start. Hey, I mentioned the 2 reels, a closed-faced, open-faced spinning reel. I forgot one. Here is kind of the best of both worlds. This is a closed-faced underspin. So basically it sits like your open-faced spinning reel, but you got a trigger instead of a button. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So I want to mention that one to you. Now, the slip bobber. As I said, right here by the weight, got a little worm on here. I'm going to run this about 3 or 4 foot deep. So here's the deal. There's the bobber stop. All right, that worm is touching the ground. If I had a standard bobber, I'd have that much line out that I'd have to try to wheel around here as I'm casting. But because I got a bobber stop, I'm only going to have it like this. Now, I'll just have that much line hanging down from the end of my rod, and I can cast it out. So that's why the bobber stop makes it easier. Well guys, fish weren't real agreeable this morning, but you know, last week when Bob and I were here, the water temp was 55, 56 degrees. Last 2 nights it's been down to 20s, and a couple guys came by in a boat a bit ago and told me the water temp's now 49, so that doesn't help. But hey, we got out, got a chance to show you how the slip bobber works. So we've covered the hooks, the weights, and the bobbers. That'll cover us for this week. Next week we'll throw a few more things in the tackle box. Thanks for sticking with me. Subscribe to our channel if you would. Hope to see you again real soon.